Welcome back to Squawk Box. Before the break, we asked you a question. What is the world's best performing stock market so far this year? And the question, the answer, according to Reuters data, is Sri Lanka. Since the start of the year, the Colombo Stock Exchange has gained 107%. The market has been on a roll since the middle of May, when the decades-long civil war in Sri Lanka came to an end. We spoke to veteran investor Jim Rogers back then, and he said the country was at the top of his investment list.
When you go into a country after a 30-year war, there are astonishing opportunities. Sri Lanka is highest on my list right now.
So how do you get in on all the action in Sri Lanka? Let's put that question to Nirosh Silva. He is managing partner at Leopard Capital, and he is joining us now live on the set. Thank you so much for coming in today, Nirosh. Is it too late for investors to put money into this market?
Not at all. I am quite confident that there's a 5-year story and a decade of growth ahead of us. So we are in the early stage, and I'm quite confident that we're going to have long-term growth in the country after 30 years of war.
But there are clearly issues that need to be resolved for investors and for the government as well. I mean, the war is over militarily, but there's a lot of reconstruction that needs to take place after 30 years of civil war, especially in the north. Rehabilitation, there's a refugee problem, and political aspirations for the minority Tamil people. Are these issues that investors will have to consider when they put money to work in Sri Lanka?
These were issues post-war, immediately as the war came to an end. And look at what's happened. The market's gone up 110%. And if you decided to stay out, that's the cost you pay. My story on Sri Lanka is that, yes, we've had a 30-year war. Coming out of it is going to take some time. So give the country 18 months to sort its long-term issues out, and I think you've got a good story ahead.
Is a big mainstay of the Sri Lankan economy. Are arrivals picking up now, post-conflict?
It's begun to happen. Sri Lanka in 1981 had almost 400,000 tourists come in. Today, as of last year, I think we had similar numbers. My target for tourism by 2015 is 3 million tourists.
Give us some advice for our viewers who are saying, okay, great, sounds good, I'm in. How do they get in? What vehicles can they utilize to get access to the Colombo Stock Exchange?
There's a quoted market. We have had a 100-year stock exchange, good regulatory system, good legal framework. You can enter the stock market. That's the primary way that you could gain exposure. And there are at least 2 funds that are going to be launched, including our one early next year. And Leopard Capital is going to be in the frontier markets for Sri Lanka.
Any ETFs?
I think by end of next year you'll have a lot of exciting ways to gain entry into the country. We are planning on launching 2 funds, and we've already heard the intention of a couple of others to enter the market as well. So exciting times ahead.
Nirosh, as far as the components for those funds are concerned, are the big listed conglomerates like Haley's and the others going to be, and John Keel's, are they going to be big constituents of that? Because clearly if you get in on those stocks, then it's leveraged quite strongly to tourism, to basically a proxy of the Sri Lankan economy.
The companies like, the top 5 companies in Sri Lanka have always had access to capital. You have essentially another 100 or 200 more, for a few of them listed, most of them not, that have been starved with capital over the last 30 years because of the war. But some good entrepreneurship that needs to be backed. We plan to get some good valuations and enter this sector through our fund. So hopefully our returns will be much better than the stock market.
And just very finally, Nirosh, one of our regular commentators on this program, Arjuna Mahendra of HSBC, has said potentially Sri Lanka could become the Hong Kong of South Asia. Is that a viable proposition in your mind?
Definitely. If my prediction is that we are going to keep doubling GDP, per capita GDPs, pretty much every 5 to 6 years. How many countries can boast of that? Even in the thick of the war, Sri Lanka's GDP was $1,000 in the early 2002. Today we have crossed 2,000, even with the war. Even in the last 5 years, We've had 6% growth in most of those years. So an exciting story, and I think it's for whoever who jumps in now, it's going to be at least a decade and a half of growth.
Well, good luck with your funds, and thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank
Nirosh.
you.
Good to have you on the show. Yeah. That was Nirosh Silva, Managing Partner at Leopard Capital, talking about Sri Lanka, the best performing stock market in the world.